We know the labor market is cooling off. We know the first Fed rate cut is coming this week. But what's been happening with inflation? Somehow, overall inflation is back to the lowest it's been since February of 2021, but core inflation as well as shelter inflation, which basically tracks the inflation of rents, are on the rise again as of last week's CPI report. So inflation is going to be the topic of this week's market news here in a minute. Mortgage rates continued to fall last week, and the trend is continuing that when mortgage rates drop, more people are listing their homes. So we saw a nice jump both in new listings as well as overall inventory last week. And on the opposite side, we also saw an increase in the number of home buyers applying for mortgages. So no real surprise there. Lower rates are going to bring in both buyers and sellers. What is unusual though is that normally this is the time of the year when the market is slowing. So we've got to see how long is the hype from these low rates going to last and how much lower are rates actually going to go by the end of this year. So we're covering all of this and much more in this week's market update. My name is Michael. I'm a real estate agent here in the Dallas area, and every Monday I give you a weekly update covering all of Dallas and Collin counties as well as the national market. We're looking for trends. We're tracking mortgage rates as well as mortgage purchase applications, as that's our best leading indicator to what demand will look like 30 to 90 days from now. We're looking at things like median list price, days on market, how many homes are having price cuts, what's inventory looking like, and if you stick around until the end, it's my favorite part, the top 10 ranked hottest and coolest cities and zip codes in all of Dallas and Collin counties. If this sounds like something you're into, make sure and hit the subscribe button. And if you're looking to buy or sell in the Dallas area, whether it's next week or next year, I'd love to connect. I've helped every one of these yellow dots find their little piece of Texas, and I'd love to help you too. Just call, text, or shoot me an email. All that info is in the description below. Okay, today is September 16th. Let's see what the data is telling us. And if this is an old video, you can click the playlist here and it'll take you to the latest weekly market update. So first up is market news, and we're starting with last week's CPI inflation report. The consumer price index for August showed a modest year-over-year gain of just 2.5%. This is the lowest annualized growth figure since February of 2021, and it's just 0.5% away from the Fed's announced target of 2%. And not surprisingly, a big part of why this 2.5% wasn't lower is the cost of shelter, which is weighted at 1/3 of this index. So the shelter component actually rose 0.5% month over month and is up 5.2% year over year. So as you can see looking at this chart, this is core inflation is the dark red line, and then it just has shelter inflation pulled out of it. But outside of COVID, when things were going absolutely crazy, you can see that it's normal for shelter to be more inflated than everything else. And this is always for the same reason. For decades now, we've had too little supply in the housing market. So we always have more demand than supply, so prices go up. And this number, the shelter component, is actually tracked only by using the cost of renting. So this actually has nothing to do with buying a home or mortgage rates, not directly at least. So if you're a renter, this is how inflated your rents are. If they did track housing affordability, it would look way more inflated than this chart. But a big part of this is when less people can buy houses because it's less affordable, then more people become renters. As rental demand goes up, there's not enough supply to meet it, so rental inflation goes up. So eventually, when rates come down, as these renters can afford houses again, the rents are going to come down some, but then housing prices will go up instead as the demand moves over from renting to buying. So overall inflation is down, but core inflation, which removes the more volatile categories like food and energy costs, actually rose 0.3% month over month and is up 3.2% for the year. And again, a big part of that is because the rising shelter costs are a part of that core inflation. And shelter costs are very heavily weighted. So the big debate has been, is the Fed going to cut rates 0.25% or 0.5%? And in my opinion, core inflation rising on this last report is going to give the Fed good reason to keep the cut small. Okay, that's it for inflation. I also wanted to take a minute to mention a video that I posted last week that I think is going to be very helpful for any of you first-time home buyers who feel like housing costs are just too high and it would be unreasonable to buy. But long story short, first-time home buyers right now are spending about 38.5% of their gross income on their housing, which is the highest it's ever been, but you need to understand that that is temporary. As their salary increases and as mortgage rates drop, in just a few years, it's very likely that they're going to be well under that 30% rule of thumb that you always hear about. And then of course, as time goes on, the one thing you can always count on is, because of inflation, your salary should be increasing as well over time. Potentially rates continue down, which means the longer you live there, the lower the percentage of your income you're using on your housing payment. But the whole thing is, you just have to lock in the price and get the clock started. So any of you first-time home buyers that feel like housing has just gotten too expensive and you can't do it, make sure and watch that video. Because again, the example I give there, in just 5 years, their housing payment is going to be well under that 30% of their gross income. And then the very last thing, This week, I need your help. I never ask for help, but this week I'm asking. Before the year ends, I am trying to help 6 more families find either their dream home or an investment property here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I'm asking you, if you hear of anyone talking about buying or selling real estate here in Dallas, please, please, please send them my way. 1,000 of you watch this free update every week, and I'm hoping at least 6 of you know someone who's looking to move soon. I am very close to hitting my yearly goal, and with your help, I know I can do it. And if you bring me a buyer, I'm gonna buy you a really nice steak dinner. Okay, moving on. Let's start with national housing inventory. This week, we had a huge increase of 10,014 more homes for sale in the country after 2 back-to-back weeks of small declines. This is welcome news. And it actually keeps us right at the same number we've been at for many weeks of having 38% more inventory than we had last year. So this gets us to 713,660 homes available for sale in the country. This same week last year, inventory was only at 519,458. So still much better this year than last year. And if you see on these 2 lines, that's the last 2 years, we did have a similar slump lasting pretty much the same. And then we continued to increase until about November. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a similar climb this year. But I'm doubtful it's going to get much higher because in those years, mortgage rates were still climbing into the winter, and this year they're actually going to be dropping. And then for reference, the all-time inventory bottom that we had in 2022, there were only 240,000 homes for sale. At the peak of last year, we had 570,000, and this same week in 2015, we had about 1.201 million homes for sale. So we're up more than double from the 2022 bottom, but still a long way to go to get back to a normal market. Now we're looking at new listings. This week, we continued our nice departure from the last 2 years. This is 2 weeks in a row that we've been above both 22 and 23. This week, we had 65,122 new listings in the U.S. And this again just shows you how much the entire market is depending on mortgage rates, because if mortgage rates keep going down, we could see more and more people listing their homes. The way it works is this. People see mortgage rates drop. They think, oh, that's going to bring more buyers in. I got to list my house right now. As well as when I sell my house, I'll be able to buy at a better mortgage rate than I've been able to for the last year. So lower rates means more new listings, and that's good news. Then the last thing I like to say about this chart, as you can see, there are going to be less and less new listings every single week from here until the end of the year. So if you're being picky and passing on perfectly good homes, hoping something better is going to come up later, the truth is you're going to have less and less new options to choose from every week. Inventory may still continue to go up, but that's the homes you've already seen that you don't want, that nobody else wants. So this is not the time to be picky. As I always say it, if you see a home and everyone agrees it's at least an 8 out of 10, you should be offering on it. Do not pass on an 8. Now looking at pending sales, you can see the weekly pending contracts data has been just slightly above 2023's numbers all year. And right now we have about 3.5% more single family homes under contract than last year. And it's hard to tell in this chart, but this gap is actually getting a little further every week from 2023's numbers, meaning there's more sales. And you've also got to remember that in this part of 2023, mortgage rates had started heading way up and ended getting all the way up to 8%. And this year, the opposite should be happening. So I would expect more and more divergence in these 2 lines as the year goes on. Then the last thing we cover nationally is the percentage of homes having price decreases. Every year it's normal for 1/3 of homes to take a price cut before selling. Looking at the national chart, we had a small drop actually this week, and we're down to 39.14% of homes having a price decrease. Last year, we got as high as 39.2, so we're just below last year's high. And the year before that, the peak was 43.2%. And if you look, we're clearly below the number of price cuts we had in 2022. So this flatness that you're seeing here is definitely unusual. If you look at the last 2 years, it just continued up both times. And of course, again, the difference is mortgage rates are headed down instead of up, which they did the last 2 years. So I don't know that this is the top for the number of homes having price cuts. It definitely should continue going up until probably November. But again, it just depends what rates do. So things could get weird this year. Okay, now moving on to mortgage rates. We started out the week at a 6.25 and got way down to a 6.11, ended the week at a 6.14. These are the lowest rates we've seen in a very, very long time. Depending on the size of the rate cut though, if it's just a 0.25% that's announced in 2 days, then rates could go back up a little bit. So I don't know what happens later this week, but as of now, these are crazy low. Then moving on to mortgage purchase applications. This week, we actually saw a 2% increase in the number of people applying for mortgages. Of course, we're still at record lows, but we're getting closer and closer every year to those 2023 demand numbers. And something interesting you should know is even with way lower demand this year, we've been having more sales, as you saw on the pending chart previously. But this makes 3 straight weeks of increasing mortgage application demand. However, there's no reason to believe that we're going to get any real mortgage demand, going anywhere near up here until rates get below 6% for a sustained period of time. We know this because that's what new construction's been offering, and their sales numbers have been looking way better than pre-owned homes. Okay, before we move on to the local market data, a couple of things. Number one, if you don't want to go broke buying a house, I've made a course for you where we will discover your actual spending habits straight from your bank account and determine with 100% accuracy how much money can you actually put towards a mortgage without going broke. Then we take a look at how much house that number can actually get you in today's market with today's rates. It takes into account everything all the way down to how much should you be saving for a maintenance budget every month? How much might your utilities go up? And it also takes into account things like your income tax bracket. So it's very comprehensive. It takes into account everything you need to know, and it's a no-brainer for anyone who wants to have peace of mind about their home purchase. Number two, if you're still a ways out but you just want to get fully educated on the home buying process, I've made 2 courses, one for new construction, one for pre-owned, and these will teach you everything you need to know about the process so that when you're ready to step in the market, you're already fully educated, you have no worries, no questions. And then number 3, in case you already forgot, I'm trying to help 6 more families move to Dallas this year. So if you know someone, please send them my way. Okay, now let's move on to the local markets, starting with the MLS data of Dallas County. In the last week, we had 614 listings. That's 19 more than last week. 272 closings. That's 42 more than last week. Of the homes that closed, 54 were immediate sales, meaning they contracted within the first week. That's 14 more than last week. 276 went under contract. That's 14 more than last week. In total, there are 2,123 homes either under contract or pending. That's 1 less than last week. Moving on to Collin County, 370 new listings, that's 18 more than last week. 237 closings, that's 69 more than last week. 42 immediate sales, that's 11 more than last week. 198 went under contract, that's 19 more than last week. In total, there are 1,817 homes either under contract or pending, and that's 49 more than last week. Okay, moving on to the Market Action Index, and if you've never seen it, it just takes into account all of this data, puts it into one easy to read graphic with a number. Anything at 30 or below is a buyer's market. Above that, we're asking how much of a seller's market are we in. This week we're at a 39, which is just a slight seller's advantage. You can see, as is expected this time of the year, we are just trending down, slowly getting cooler and cooler, and this is the coolest we've been this year. It's a 38.86, but again, still a slight seller's advantage. No big change from where we've been, which is about 39. But median list price saw a small drop of $2,900 this week. Median price of new listings, however, went up a little bit. Average days on market and median both climbing. We jumped up to 56 on median, which is the one I think is more important. Again, the market should be slowing. Everything is looking normal. That's what we're looking for here. Is everything looking normal? Yes, it is. Number of homes having price decreases. Same with the national data. It saw a tick up this week, but it's still not the highest it's been for the year. Still a ton of people relisting their homes. 9.02%. Again, I've said this the last few weeks, but what's happening here with the relistings? That's the people who couldn't sell before. Now they see rates are dropping. They think, now I can sell. So that's why a lot of people are jumping to list their homes, which is good news for the new listings data and for anyone looking to buy a home, because it means more inventory. And of course, you see that here. Inventory went up a little bit, but overall, everything is looking normal, except we're seeing a ton of new listings, which is good for home buyers. Then we're looking at the same thing, except in Collin County. Everything's looking normal here as well. They also have a big increase, a trend up of people relisting their median list price. So if you'll remember, the price of new listings had a huge jump from $500 to $615 last week, and we said, that's not a trend, let's wait and see. As you can see, it came right back down somewhere in the middle to $550, which really, $550 is still high. We've not seen that really since July. But the point is, we need the data to settle, and we're looking for a trend. We're not worried about 1 week data, but we can see new listings taking advantage of lower rates. There's also a lot of new construction here, so they're offering even lower rates than what you see. And whatever they're seeing is leading them to list their new listings a little bit higher. Average days on market is climbing. Their median has not climbed yet, though. It's still at a 49. Number of homes having price decreases is a little bit higher. Their inventory, though, has been a lot more flat than Dallas. Dallas was still kind of trending up. This has been pretty flat for a while. And their market action index, very similar to Dallas. It's about, 2 points less, still is a slight seller's advantage. Okay, moving on to pending sales. As you can see, we had an expected jump similar to what we saw in 2022. We didn't have that in 2023, however. But look at how many more pending sales there are in Dallas County than there were last year. I mean, that's an insane amount more homes. Over 300 homes. And as you can see, in both of these, we should be starting our trend down. But again, mortgage rates could be dropping this year instead of rising like they did the last 2 years. So I don't actually know what's going to happen with that pending line this year. But let's look at Collin County. Of course, Collin is a ton of new construction, #2 fastest growing county in the country. That's why this black line is way above the previous 2 years, because there's just a ton of new growth happening there. But they as well have had a climb in pending sales. So overall, more sales happening everywhere. Now we're moving on to our top 10 ranked hottest and coolest cities and zip codes in all of Dallas and Collin counties. We're starting out with the hottest cities list. Now moving on to the top 10 hottest and coolest cities and zip codes in all of Dallas and Collin counties. These are ranked using that market action index number. Remember, 30 or below is a buyer's market. Starting with the hottest cities, Carrollton, Ferris, and Duncanville all remain the 3 hottest cities. Saxe heats up 3, Louisville cools off 1, Lancaster cools off 1, Grand Prairie cools off 1, Irving heats up 2, Garland cools off 1, and Plano cools off 1. Then we like to zoom in at specific zip codes. The absolute hottest is Carrollton 75007 at a 53.8, followed by Hutchins 75141, Dallas 75244, Duncanville 75137, Carrollton 75010, Irving 75061, Dallas 75234, Ferris 75125, Allen 75013, and Garland 75044. Now moving on, same thing, but the coolest cities and zip codes. And there are 6 official buyers markets. Leonard and Van Alstyne remain the 2 coolest. Blue Ridge cools off 1, Whitewright cools off 1, Sunnyvale heats up 2. Anna and Prosper remain. Farmersville jumps onto the list at number 8. Rockwall heats up 1, Salina heats up 1, and Lavon, which was the hottest city on the coolest cities list last week, heats up off the list. Then looking at the zip codes, and all of these but the very last one are buyers markets. So the absolute coolest is Dallas 75204, then Leonard 75452, Van Alstyne 75495, Blue Ridge 75424, Whitewright 75491, Sunnyvale 75182, Rockwall 75032, Anna 75409, Dallas 75220, and Dallas 75212. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. As always, if you're looking to buy or sell in the Dallas area, call, text, or shoot me an email. I would love to connect. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.